Hey guys, how's it going? Jet Scott here, and we're gonna do something a little bit different today. We're gonna do an educational video, more or less. It's gonna be a pretty neat one. Something I wanted to do since I got the parts to do it. And bam, can you guess what we're doing today? Maybe it has something to do with comparing cylinder heads. So what we got here is Gen 1 Hemi, Gen 1 poly head, Gen 2 Hemi, and then various parts showing off the differences. This cylinder head is off my 241 Red Ram Dodge Hemi. It's sitting over there, we've been working on. This is off of the junk engine we bought for parts, which didn't give us any usable parts really besides another intake and stuff, but it's all crap. This is a 241 poly, and this is of course one of the heads off my 426 Hemi, and I loaded up with some valves just that way we can compare them. And then, you know, we have 426 Hemi piston, stock for 241 rockers, and 426 Hemi rockers as well. So let's start off with immediately is the intake ports on the 241 Red Ram Hemi and the 241 poly. The intakes are exactly the same. They take the same intake. The exhaust side, however, is completely different, which I can't show you, but this is a rectangular, and it's different spacing. It's all even. It's more like a Ford pattern, whereas the little Red Ram Hemi has got this funky pattern for some odd reason, but they're all round, which is pretty neat. But the issue that you can already see is, well, in order for it to flow real nice, it's got to overcome this boss right here where the valve rides in, right where it holds the valve guide in, whatever the proper term for that is. Whereas on the 426, it's pretty much just a straight shot up and out. See all that light it lets in. You can look down in here, it's perfect. These heads may be ported a little bit, but they're almost identical to the other head, which these are non-matching heads. Damn it, focus. This head and that other head don't match, but they're also both really smooth on the ports. And every Hemi head I've seen, they've never been rough. They've always been pretty smooth. Now this one's been O-ringed, but this has stock valves, 225, 194. That's intake and exhaust. The 241 has, I believe, an inch and 1.74 intake and like a 1.4 exhaust, something like that. Giant difference. In fact, I wanted to show you this. So this is one of the junk valves out of my 241 Hemi in comparison to a intake on a 426. Fits nicely inside of it. It's even smaller than the exhaust valve. Get it in there. Yeah, look at that. And then the exhaust valve on the baby Hemi is just this adorable little nail. And yeah, it doesn't even pale in comparison. If the stems were the same size, these are bigger stems than what's on the 426. If it fit in there, I'd love just to drop it right in. But as you can see, the chambers changed a lot. In this, this era, this is a lot smaller bore, and it's more of just a perfect hemisphere, and it's just really small. That's my fist in that hole. You can take that however you want, and my fist basically almost fits in the 426. It's a lot bigger chamber, and it's a much deeper dome, where this is more of a shallow dome. This is more reminiscent. This is more like what the Gen 3 Hemis have. And when we show you the pistons, you'll understand what I mean there. And the 241 poly, which a lot of people don't get to see, it's basically the same chamber, but the valves, instead of being opposite of each other, they are in a line. The spark plug right there. This is actually a really good design. Got a big quench right there, and the exhaust valve is kind of shrouded up in this piece of casting, but the valves are basically the same size, but they're different lengths, I believe. If we take, this is the intake valve off of the 241 Hemi. It fits nice over that, and then this valve's got a crack in it, but if you could get it in there, basically the same size. So there's the valve comparisons. I just like looking at the differences because these are both 54 engines. what I understand. I know this is a 54. This might be a 53 or 54. But it's kind of cool to think, you know, this is generation 1. This is like the first Hemi. This is the first Hemi, one of the first polys. I don't know when they started the poly head. And this is, of course, the 426 Gen 2, the Legend. So there's the differences there. I didn't really think about it, but showing off the intakes. You know, the intake ports on a 426 are absolutely just monstrous. And I know, we can go over here. I want to keep it all local, but these, you know, they're actually a pretty good size for what the engine is. And of course, when this is mounted, it's almost like a Buick nail head, where this is almost just perfectly flat. And the intake just sits on top, but it's got a little bit of an angle. Whereas the 426, when it's mounted, it's rather conventional, with as in the wedges, where it's at an angle. So let's move on to pistons. And that's a small difference. A little difference. So I gotta go ahead and say, this is not a stock 426 piston, and this is not a 426 rod. This rod would be 10 thousandths longer, because this is a 446 pack rod. I'll be using that to drop the compression rate, because this is a 12-to-1 TRW piston. Big old gnarly piston. But the rods are the same, basically different pin diameter. So this rod ought to be bushed to match the Hemi pin. That's about fell. About had a heart attack. But the rod journal size is the same. But yeah, so that's basically, you know, you wouldn't even be able to see the difference if that was a true 426 rod. Whereas if you look at this little baby Hemi rod, it is just tiny in comparison. But it uses a flat top piston with dual valve reliefs, an intake and exhaust valve relief. And when this is in the combustion chamber, put this in the right way, it fits in there real nice. And then it has clearance for the valves. In fact, you can push on the valve and it'll push the piston up. It'll go right into that. Whereas when you have the 426 Hemi piston in, you've got a lot of meat you can go down into to get more compression ratio. Now this is also a 12-to-1 piston, and the 241 has 7.1-to-1 compression. So pretty good difference there in terms of compression ratios. I have yet to find a set of like high performance pistons for 241, but these are going to work in the engine. By the way, a little bit of, you know, advertisement here for myself. I am rebuilding this entire engine in a video series. If you haven't seen it yet, we're on part 7, should be going live here pretty soon, where we are putting the valves together. In fact, that's what this head is for. But anyways, back to what we're talking about. So there's the main difference. Oh, there's a lot of differences. I mean, you can just look at the castings, and I'll flip these heads around if I feel that it's necessary, but I don't think it's going to be necessary, because the tops of the stuff here don't really matter. It's the rocker arms that's another difference. But it's kind of cool how similar they remained. So, you know, you have the basic gist of it. 426, 241. You know, they kept the dual shaft mount, which you kind of got to do for that. And whereas these arms got a nice round to them, these ones are virtually vertical. And the intake's got a little more curve to them, whereas these are just a straight curve. And the 426 has head bolts that go straight down the center, and then it's bolted to the shafts right there with the stands. Whereas this one, they are pinned in on both ends, and then the head bolts actually go straight through the rocker stands. But they use springs to hold everything together, which is pretty neat. And it's just a cool deal. I just thought it'd be neat to, you know, do a small little comparison of the different engines. And of course, I got some wedge heads over there, which I could show you, but not really much comparison. The best thing to do is have like a small block head, because that's what the poly became. It went from this to the 318 poly, which is the more common engine, and then that turned into the LA small block, because the 318 poly was the A block small block. And of course, the most noticeable thing about an early poly is the valve covers. They got this really cool design on them. Whereas, you know, here's the valve covers for a 241 Hemi. See Red Ram and Dodge, and then there's the 426. And they all utilize the spark plug tube. These are just a lot longer than what they are on the 241. And the 241s are, well, look at full mount. Yeah, they're deeper. But these just use a single O-ring, where these use a grommet with a metal washer that goes on top to hold them in place. And of course the blocks, there couldn't be anything more different than the blocks, really. This is more of a small block design with the block. As in that the crank is exposed on the bottom with the main caps, and then it has seals on the ends of the oil pan, whereas the 426 is more like just a standard big block. That is a 440 block, by the way, for anybody who's going to call me out. My 426 block is still sitting wherever I bought it at. I haven't gone and got it yet. Oh, and of course the little baby Hemis, distributors in the back like a small block, whereas the 426 is mounted up front, kicked off to the passenger side like a regular big block. In fact, pretty much mostly all big block parts will interchange on that. And apparently a lot of small block parts will work on this, like an oil pump, distributor. I think that's it though. I don't know. Still learning about these engines. But yeah. I blew through all that stuff pretty quickly. So if there's anything else you guys want to learn about, I mean, I guess we could talk about the intake. The intake's not that interesting. But it's pretty neat information in my opinion. You know, I have the 426 and I have the 241. I just thought it'd be cool to set the heads next to each other. In fact, I have this poly too. And why not just put them together and just show the differences? Is 54 and 64 when this was introduced. You know, that's 10 years, that's a decade worth of design change. And that's a lot of changes. That is for sure. But anyways, guys, I just want to do a little instructional, well, not instructional, but you know what I mean. I just wanted to show people, you know, the differences, because there's a lot of differences. A lot of things happened in that 10 years, and I just think it's neat. I just really think it's cooler than hell that I have the opportunity to have Gen 1 and 2 next to each other, and I'm rambling now. So anyways, guys, just want to thank you for watching. You know, like, comment, share, subscribe, whatever. Do whatever you guys want if you like the video. If not, go down in the comments and bash me, and I'll reply to you and I'll be like, you're cool, man. We could be friends. Well, anyway, stay tuned. There's a lot of good videos coming out. And I need to get back to work on the 241 because I want to get it on the engine stand and running sometime soon. You guys take care, and I'll see you later. Bye. Karate chop. Give it a karate chop.
Bye-bye.
That was a damn good scoop, kid.